Welcome to Hope is Here. My name is Greg Horn, and glad that you've tuned in with us today. And really excited today. Got a longtime friend of mine with us. In fact, some of you in the Lexington, Central Kentucky area may recognize his name. Rusty George is with us today. Rusty was on staff at Southland Christian Church, and he is actually the guy that started the 608 service at Southland. And I have to get Rusty to talk about that because when he presented the idea, didn't know if it was going to get off the ground, and it did. And I think the best compliment about a leader is when what happens after you leave. And glad to say that I think almost 15 years later, that's still going strong. So that might be where you know Rusty from, on staff at Southland, and just a tremendously gifted communicator, and left to take a church in Valencia, California called Real Life Church. And God's just doing amazing things out there. But he's also an author on top of being a great communicator on Sundays and weekend services. And we're going to talk about a really good book that he's got that's going to be coming out called Better Together. But before we get talking about this book, Rusty, you and I are both big basketball guys, and that's what made us good friends 20 years ago. And obviously Kentucky's kind of had some tough things going on with their basketball, but the only thing I can find that I don't like about your brother is that you're a North Carolina basketball fan, but they kind of had a painful Monday night, didn't they?
Well, Greg, first of all, it's an honor to be on your program, and great to be talking with Kentuckians once again. North Carolina had a rough go of it the other night, but you know what? We won a title. We're still the reigning champs, so we'll go ahead and let others win for a while.
Ouch. Is that a dial tone we hear in the background? Did we lose Rusty? Did we lose Rusty? That's right. I forgot. I should be talking smack. You guys won the national championship last year. So forgive me, Father, for knowing what to do.
Of course.
Oh, goodness. All right, my man. We can talk sports all hour, but I want to talk, my show, Hope is Here program, is just to try to encourage others. And you've got a book that's coming out in February. I was fortunate enough to get an advanced copy and read through it. And man, I love the topic of this book, Rusty. You're talking about discovering the power of community. And, we live, I love one of the examples you gave in the book about selfies and taking selfie pictures. But, man, in our culture, we really do like to isolate ourselves, don't we?
Well, we really do, and technology just continues to allow us to do that. You think about the way that we're able now to pretty much do everything online and everything from home. We can work at home. We can shop at home. We can watch church at home. There's so many experiences we can have alone and at home. You can live with this idea that, well, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, I've got all these friends, I follow all these people, people follow me. And then you wake up one day and realize, I don't know anybody. I don't have anybody in my life that knows who I am. I don't know who anybody really, is below the surface. And you might even have family around you, but they don't know the real you. And so our culture is just kind of, creating this sense of self-isolation where we just wake up in our own pretty much self-isolated prison.
Well, and, on top of with technology and things you talk about, sometimes, we obviously go to church to find hope and things, but sometimes I love the quote that you put in there by Henry Cloud that the message of the church is often, God is good, you are bad, so just try harder.
That's so true. I grew up in the Midwest and grew up in Kansas, which should make me a Jayhawks fan, but I'm not, and just, kind of ran from that. But anyway, growing up in the Midwest, you go to church 3 times a week, sometimes 4, need it or not. And there really is this message, and it was pretty common back when I was growing up, of, what, God is good, you're not, so try harder. And so your life kind of gets settled into this gospel of sin management. How do I just do less bad things and more good things and, kind of work out my salvation with fear and trembling alone? And so much of our personal, growth and our attempts to find hope, our attempts to find healing, and a relationship with God really turns into a personal journey. You just kind of isolate yourself, and this is why I think, and I'm sure that nobody does this in Kentucky, but out here, people just, if they go to church at all, then they begin to church shop.
Yeah.
I know you've heard that phrase before. Well, we're just shopping around right now, and we're just trying to find a place that fits for us. And And inevitably, you find a place that fits for you, and then after a while, it doesn't fit you, and so you leave. And so when you continue on with those surface-level relationships, you never begin to develop real community. And as a result, you just get more and more isolated. And so then this whole problem of try harder and God looking favorably upon you, you never really put together, at least I didn't, that my relationships are really how I grow in my faith, more than just me reading the Bible more, praying more, and studying more on my own.
I love another example that you had. It was actually in the beginning of the book there where, you talked about even our daily devotions are focused on us. And, you talked about a lot of people think, oh, well, if you're a lead pastor, I mean, you're in the holiest of holies, I mean, you don't ever get discouraged or down or whatever. And I love your book because you're very transparent about, hey, I've had some challenges. And I thought it was really just amazing and interesting how you did a lot of things, and I'd like for you to share those that that most people would try, and then it winded up that a fellow pastor friend was able to help you through a situation in his life. You mind sharing about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that people need to realize that pastors are people too, and we have the same kind of hurts and habits and hang-ups that everybody else does. And oddly enough, a lot of us are very insecure. And so when somebody does leave our church, we take it painfully. We take it personally. When somebody says something negatively about us, it hurts. And with the wonderful invention of social media, we get to hear a lot of people's comments and complaints and evaluations about the Sunday message or the service or what churches should be doing. Or you wake up and you look on Facebook and you see some people that you thought were part of your church are highly supporting another church in town because they moved and you didn't even know it. So,
and hear about what a great message it was that morning.
That's right. It was so great from Pastor so-and-so, and you think, boy, I didn't even know they'd left us. So, all that stuff really does begin to bother you. And for me personally, because I can be kind of a people pleaser, I went through a season a couple years ago where some people that I thought were close to me had left. I thought we were really good friends, and they decided our church wasn't for them anymore, and they moved on. And I wanted to be the bigger person and just say, you know what, it's all for the kingdom of God, that's fine, good for you, at least you're going to church somewhere. But I couldn't get over it. And personally, I was hurt. I felt betrayed. I thought, I'm a loyal person, you should be loyal as well. And that really began to work on me. And I heard years ago by another pastor who said that the bait of Satan is to be offended, and how Satan will use offense as a way to get a hold of our heart. And that's certainly what happened to me, because I got offended, and then I began to really let that kind of ease into my heart and get a hold of my life, and it really took me in a dark place. So you fast forward a little bit, I find myself in this pit of despair, and I thought, how do I get out of this? So I began trying every single thing that I think we all try. I tried fitness. I joined the gym. I got on a plan. I got a trainer that told me what to do. And then I would go to the gym and I'd work out alone. And then I started investing in personality tests, and I got to know who I was and my psyche and my DISC profile and my Myers-Briggs and my Enneagram and color code, and there's like 2,200 different personality tests you can do, and I did a bunch of them. I even went to a therapist, and I talked through my issues and just, kind of walked through my childhood and all that kind of stuff and learned some key things I needed to know about myself. Even went to a psychiatrist to figure out, do I need medication, and walk through that. Went to my doctor and after all this, I'd learned so much about myself, but I was still alone. And I was still feeling like I had this pit of despair I couldn't get out of. And so one day, I'm having dinner, or breakfast, I guess it was, with another pastor friend of mine who had come in from out of town. And he's a few years older than me and experienced a few more years of ministry life. And I'm just telling him my story about just, discouragement and people leaving and people that hurt my feelings and all that. And he tells me a story about a family in his church they were very close to. They'd vacation together. They'd spend all their time together. He felt he could be very authentic and real with. And one day they just turned on him, and they just said, you're not the man we'd hoped you would be, and we're leaving the church, and yada, yada. And how devastating that was for him. And I said, man, what do you make of that? And he goes, you know what? If it does nothing other than just encourage you that you're not alone, it was worth it. And I thought, wow. I mean, talk about taking one for the team. I mean, that's unbelievable that he would see that as a victory if it would encourage me. And oddly enough, he was right. It did encourage me because I knew I wasn't alone. I wasn't crazy. Other people thought the same way I thought. And this is true not just for pastors. This is true for everybody. We all want to know that somebody else knows how we feel and that somebody else has been there. And so for me, the realization was the way out of this pit of despair is not by self-help or self-effort or my own personal work. It's on linking arms with other people and walking out of this together because they've already been through it.
Well, and I love the quote that you put in the book right at the end of that story that you just shared with our audience. You said, after this man, having this conversation, I left with hope. It must have something to do with community. Life is lived better together, especially in our pain.
It's truly the revelation that I had at that moment. And you would think I would have figured that out, right? I'm a pastor. I'm supposed to be, perfect and have it all together, but I just haven't. And I just, left to our own devices, we kind of drift towards, the demons of our nature. And I'm an introvert, so it's easy for me to go and be alone. I'm easily, offended, so it's easy to be offended by what people say or what they don't do or what they should do. And being with other people reminds me that I need others, and that healing does come through community.
Well, and we both have been through a mutual loss. Both of us really loved our dads and were close to them. And I know, you recently lost your dad. And, man, it's times like that when we especially know that we need people, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. Well, and Greg, and I even think about your own story of, walking through the disaster of the flood at the grocery store and, just seeing you rely on friends and the people at the church and the people of that community of Cynthiana and your family. I mean, it's in those darkest moments that you just really need others, and it's in that time that you recognize I really do grow through this with other people around.
Well, there's no doubt about that, and you talked about also in your book, Better Together. If you just tune in, we're talking with Rusty George. He's got a new book coming out called Better Together that I just recently got done reading. You talked about, it's not just about us being better together, but really finding ways that we can connect with each other better.
Right, it really is. I mean, you think about all this self-discovery that I did, and we all do. If you've been down that path before, and often we do, and certainly the first of the year, we think, I'm going to get in shape, and I'm going to figure myself out and read X number of books and do various things in the community. You usually walk away from that with some understanding of who you are. But now what do I do with this? What do I do with the knowledge that I'm an introvert, but I'm an INTJ on Myers-Briggs, I'm a high I on the DISC, I'm a number 1 on the Enneagram. Okay, so I've learned all this stuff. What do I do with that? Well, it really pairs well with people that are the opposite, which is, so counterintuitive. You would think that, all right, if I'm an INTJ on the Myers-Briggs, then I would hang out better with other INTJs. Well, that's true, but we'd never talk because we would both be introverts. We'd always be on time, but we'd always be silent. What helps is to be with people that are just the opposite of me because they end up balancing me out. I think about some of my best friends are extroverts, because I see in them what I wish I could be, but I know that I'm not. And they see in me what they wish they could be, but they know they're not. I tend to process stuff internally. They process stuff externally. So being with extroverts actually helps me take more risks and dream bigger dreams. Extroverts being with me helps them think through what they're about to say and why they may not have should have said that, So I think that when you figure out who you are, that's a good thing. But now you can balance that out with other people that are different than you and enjoy that rather than recoil from it for fear that, they're not like me, so I shouldn't be with them. And that, I think, is the beauty of the church. And that's why I'm a huge proponent for people engaging in a weekly service with a church, being involved more than just the Sunday message, getting to know people, because we really do grow more in circles than we do in rows.
All right, well, we got to wrap up this part of our program, but stay with us. Rusty's going to stay with us. We're talking with Rusty George about his new book coming out called Better Together. If you tuned in late, you can catch it on our podcast, and you can find it online at hopeishere.today.